Come on, turn the radio on. It's Friday night and it won't be long. Gotta do my hair, put my makeup on. It's Friday night and it won't be long till I hit the dance floor, hit the dance floor. I got all I need. No, I ain't got cash, I ain't got cash, but I got you, baby. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. I don't need no money. As long as I can feel the beat. I don't need no money. As long as I keep dancing. Come on, turn the radio on. Saturday and it won't be long. Gotta paint my nails, put my high heels on. Saturday and it won't be long till I hit the dance floor, hit the dance floor. I got all I need. No, I ain't got cash, I ain't got cash, but I got you, baby. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. I don't need no money. As long as I can feel the beat. I don't need no money. As long as I keep dancing. No, I don't need no money. As long as I can feel the beat. No, I don't need no money. As long as I keep dancing. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight. I don't need no money. As long as I can feel the beat. I don't need no money. As long as I keep
Whoa! Man, just shut the f up, bro.
Oh, sure.
Off
Gamer subs.
yourself.
I'm actually disabled.
Every time I fart, I smell shit.
What the f was that on her Twitter? What the f? Mod spam Mantis for 24 hours. Looks pretty decent.
What the fuck are you eating, you fatty?
Oh,
Dirty boy.
R-U-N. Shut the f up.
Well, I think you should just fucking kill yourself, Uxnipper.
Yourself.
I'm gonna suck you, James. What the actual sucky suck is?
What is that llama?
Can you please moan again, please? Thank you. And Ohio Skibbity Riz.
Pussy tight, pussy clean, pussy fresh.
My soundboard. I need my soundboard.
Pussy tight,
Now.
pussy tight, pussy clean, pussy fresh. Pussy fresh.
One time saw a penis and I enjoyed it.
That is the most truest thing you've ever said.
Thank you. Have a good night, bro.
Okay, what the fuck was that? Did you shit yourself?
I wanna see the very slaves that no one ever earned.
What the fuck was that?
What are you doing knockoff exactly? Pussy!
Holy fuck, Stewie, I'm shitting.
I prefer not to watch streamers who shit their pants.
Gonna need a sensu for that one.
Sung Wong Chong, Ching Wong Wong Jong Jing.
Shut up.
I needed to pee for so long.
Then pee. Do it right now in my mouth.
Virus found. 10,000 porn videos found on user's computer. FBI will now investigate your computer. Virus found. Virus found. Monkey boy peasant, get up and clean my chimney so you can get her weekly ration of bread.
What the fuck? Who did that?
Curious.
Hey chat, you reckon I should just drink that entire thing and just end my life? Hit 1 for yes. Oh, so cute. Aw, what a dumb piece of shit.
I'm jaking it.
Hey, how's your day today? Oh, oh, that was sick. That was awesome. Holy shit.
Just up the road from Clan by the Wingus for get a congratulations.
Is he racist? That's awesome. You're dead. You're dead. You're dead. You're fucking dead. You're so dead. It's so weird. The way he does that. I'm not gonna get first one. I love cock. Cock and badge. Why, James? Why? Oh, lovely. Ah! What'd you fucking say?
I'm having a hard time getting it in.
It's fine. I mean, this is your first time, isn't it?
See your autism struggling every time that comes up.
Yeah, I hate it. It fucking sucks. It's fucking stupid.
Donkey Kong's vagina.
Racism.
He's Woolworths the fresh fruit autistic.
Okay, that was kind of funny. Yo! Hello? Hello. Hey boys, how are we? Thank you for joining. My name's Hook Sniffer. Today, can you guys hear me properly? Like, is this clear? Can you guys hear me properly? Yeah? Okay, as long as you guys hear me properly, it's fine. I have no clue who's in chat right now, so whoever is in chat, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing great. Today, you probably know what the title is. We're going to be setting up our streamer decorations, our Christmas decoration. It is November. Hello, Shadow Kitten. How are you, bro? How the fuck are you? I had a long walk today and I was very, very tired. Hope you're doing well. We're doing Christmas decorations. I got my Christmas tree right here. And we are going... also, Mama Hook got me this. It's a dinosaur. Look how cool that is. It's a dinosaur. How cool is that? It's like a dinosaur Christmas thing. It's actually fucking sick. So before we do anything... How are you? How you going? You going well today? Hope you're doing great today. So, and another thing as well, can you hear me? Miss ya and your lives. Yo, Christmas. Yeah, you have missed a lot. It's hard because I've got such a diverse different people who come into the streams. And if I do it nighttime, less people from different time zones can join in. So I'm trying to take this advantage of just, you know, streaming when I can throughout the daytime because I've got some time off from work before the busy season comes in because I got a new job. So I hope you're doing well though. And also, awesome seeing you, by the way. Thank you for coming here. I do appreciate that. If I talk over here, can you hear me properly? Am I over here? Can you hear me properly? What if I go over here? Can you hear me properly as well? Is this like a good, clear thing? I feel like the music, by the way. The music's sick, eh? I like the music. Yes, you good? Fuck yeah, man. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to like put some stuff away. I'm going to show you guys what I've got, by the way. So not only I'm showing this to you, I'm showing it to somebody else who is on YouTube right now watching this because a lot of my videos I want to try and upload more often to see people who missed out on stuff. I got this. You got no music? Oh, we should change that. We should change that because music's actually fucking fire. I don't know why there's no music. That's fucking weird. Hang on. As if for some reason my music sounds garbage. I don't know why. How's that? Let me know if you can hear music, by the way. Let me know if it's different. Okay, hang on. Should I move here? I should move here actually. But yeah. Okay, so what we got is we got these lights. Yeah, we got this light. We got ULD lights here. I was thinking of adding it here, maybe here. If not, on the shelf, have like a designated shelf here so be able to see it. Because normally the camera is this way, so you'd be seeing the camera over this way a little bit more though. So I'm thinking maybe have the Christmas lights here maybe, and it looks pretty nice. I'll get rid of everything else here and I'll pop it there, or even here maybe, so it's a bit more lower down so you'll be able to see a bit better when I'm streaming normally at nighttime. So because I do want to have it right here. It'd be really nice to have though, but I live in a rental and I don't think the stickiness on here can make do with what I'm trying to go for. So I'm just a bit of a dilemma with that. We'll think about that later on. We'll see how we got that later on. We also got extra balls. We got some balls. And maybe over here. We got balls. We got balls, chat. Christmas balls. They're all going to be going on the Christmas tree. Do not worry about that. And so another thing as well. Dinosaur lights. Second shelf where the tree gonna go. She's gonna go here. There's a little tape right here where my hat is. The tree's gonna be here. That's where my tree's gonna go to. So they did the elevator too, so you'll be able to see a lot of it. So that's the whole idea. So yeah, these things are a nightmare. I may not be able to have these because they've been tangled for so long. You can see how old that is too. Look at that, it's old duct tape right there. So I'm a little bit nervous about opening these up, but you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Next one, we got some more lights here that I got recently. Very, very nice lights. We've got fairy lights right here. And the cool thing about these ones is it is powered. It's powered. So we can pop it into a PowerPoint and light it on the Christmas tree. I'm sure it'll be very, very nice at night time. So these I'm very excited for. Very, very excited. Also, another thing as well, I've got a chat reader here as well. I keep on looking over that way, and I should be looking at my chat right here. So I can actually read the messages a lot more clearly. Fuck. There we go. Yeah, it looks way better. Yeah, I love your emotes, by the way. What are you doing for Christmas, by the way, bro? What's your plan for Christmas? What's you and your family up to for Christmas, bro? Oh, shit. Oh, well, I broke that. Hang on. God damn it. There we go. Alright, back to the Christmas tree. That's cool. We love that. So I'm going to pop this little hat on here. I want a longer hat, but beggars can't be choosers. I'm going to put this hat on here. Hopefully that hat should be fine like that, hopefully. Hang on. That might be better. Hopefully that's fine. Hopefully that's good. That's good. Hopefully. Alright, so that should be fine. Hopefully it should be okay. We got a little tiny Christmas tree here as well. I've had this Christmas tree. This little one here. We have a couple of these. It's been probably moved away. We've lost them throughout the years of moving. But I remember having these trees when I was a baby. We've had these for many, many years. So it's very special to me having these trees. So I'm going to pop it right here. But now, I'm thinking, do we get rid of everything on here and just keep only Christmas stuff? There's a bit of a mess right here, as you can see. A bit of a tiny mess there. And I'm just thinking, should we get rid of the Gamer Subs up there as well? Or should we put the Gamer Subs on the Christmas tree? Right there. That's all Gamer Subs right there. So I'm thinking, do we get rid of it, put it away, or do we put it on a Christmas tree? I reckon we should put it on a Christmas tree. That's how I feel about it. Christmas tree. Maybe Christmas tree. Maybe. We'll see how we go though. Gotta pop this on here as well. Like that too as well. Shit. Did I? Hang on. Should I? Hang on. Should I? Can I put this on properly? I can. Hang on. Should I tie it up as well? Probably should tie it up, to be honest, eh? Just so it's a bit more tighter on here, you know? Give me a second, boys. But Shadow, thank you for being here, by the way, bro. I just keep remembering. I keep forgetting of how we first met because I've met a lot of as an ad break. There's an ad break. Sorry, guys, ad break. Hang on. Ad break. Sorry. Oh, so TikTok. I had a feeling it was TikTok. I've met so many different people from different communities, so it's a bit hard to know which one's which. So yeah. Oh, I should probably wait. No, wait. Hopefully the ads are not too long. If they're too long, I might have to bring it down a little bit. It's yeah, okay. I'm gonna change the mouse thing for the chat because the chat looks a bit awkward where it is. Give me a second, sorry. Give me a second, sorry. Hang on. Oh, hang on. There you go. I follow you forever and then you commented on my video. Oh, dude, really? So you've known me before I even interact with you. That's such a mind-blowing thing. That's actually sick. That is actually so cool. I love that. That's actually awesome. All right, we got this going on. We got the glasses going. You can see the glasses right there. Glasses. Alright, I got the glasses going. That's really cool though. That's actually so cool. What are the odds of that actually being a thing? That's so cool. Yeah, huge fan back then. I fangirled hard. Oh my god. Well, I do apologize for the lack of content recently. I'm going to be uploading another series with Fat Llama. That was so delayed. That was so delayed, that little hook there. Anyway, we're going to be basically going to be pretty much just having an upload of a Let's Play series very, very soon. I Am Not Human. Llama and I played the whole series and we went back and forth on dialogue and reading funny stuff. Hopefully it should be up here very, very soon. Oh, you got an ad? That was 2 ads? What the fuck? I got 2 ads? I'm so sorry. How do I change that? I need to change that. Whoever is listening to this right now on YouTube, please tell me how to change that. I feel so bad. That fucking sucks. Oh my god. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna wait for a bit. Gonna wait to come back. I feel bad. That's so cool though. Oh, hello. I was waiting for you to come back actually. Welcome back from the adpocalypse. I do apologize for that. But once again, I do apologize for the lack of content that I had recently. I honestly came back from a convention in Brisbane. Met some people there as well. We had a nice fun time. I'm going to try my very best to do a collaboration video on just a bunch of videos we all recorded together and put it a little video on my YouTube channel. And in case you do ever miss out on any content I do, I try my very best to upload VODs onto my VOD channel on YouTube. If you type in Hook Sniffer VODs, it should be there, and it should be from previous VODs from the past. Hopefully a lot of that I try and upload as much as possible on that channel to make sure people don't miss out on anything. Also my reaction as well. I'm going to be recording very soon of a reaction to me watching my very favorite YouTube channel, Cold Ones. The latest episode they got so far is they're going to be basically tricking random NPCs of AI generated art pieces and pretending that it's actual art and they're trying to sell to people, which is fucking hilarious. Yeah, thank you, yeah. It's just because I feel bad for people who just miss out on my content, you know? I just feel bad, you know? Shit. I feel bad. And tomorrow night, if you can remember this, or even come if you can, I'm doing a Sea of Thieves series collaboration with Fat Llama, Celestial Rogue, and my mate, Prawns. So we're going to be doing a 4-way stream, or maybe 3, because Fat Llama basically doesn't stream. So it's going to be like a 3-way stream. So hopefully we'll be able to do that as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Sea of Thieves, I'm so keen for. Got some shit ready for Sea of Thieves already. I've got some chocolate coins, I've got my grog. I'm very, 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 very excited. Very, very keen for that. So hopefully, if you do miss out on the stream, it is okay. I'll try and upload the VOD and I'll even try and edit like highlight stuff. I'm trying to do another highlight as well of me playing RV there yet with Fat Llama and Kayla Wu. I'm going to try and make more episodes of that and upload that to YouTube as well. Because the whole motivation of me playing and doing videos and streaming is because I want to make people smile and I want to give the happiness back into the world that the games and my friends have given to me, and then pass that happiness and enjoyment on to somebody else who probably need it a lot more than I do, who is in a bit more of a darker place in their life and they need that smile and that push to get through the other side of it. That drop really perfectly timed it, didn't it? Make a TikTok out of that. I remember the last big event, that was a charity event, and I sent Franklin the colorful llama. Holy shit, Fat Llama still has that. So I gave that to Fat Llama as a gift, because not only gave it to a charity for it to be auctioned off to another person, they gave the money that they sold off to back to me, so I could send it to Fat Llama as a full-on gift of us finally meeting in person last year in Sydney. I think Fat Llama still has that. So you have that llama has traveled from America. I'm assuming it's America, right? It's America to Australia in Brisbane, and then to Sydney. So they traveled a lot. They traveled a lot. So that's really nice to see. Now remember who you are. Seriously, we do appreciate that. Honestly, if you remember that as well, we made a total of $1,300 in cancer research, and just a little thing I want to try and go for. But Chicago, now I knew it was San Francisco or Chicago. I think it was one of those two that I was remembering. What time is it for you right now, bro? Hopefully it's not too late for you, bro. Hopefully you're okay. Hopefully. If there's any music you want to recommend playing, by the way, you can play if you want to. I'm playing this because it gives you like a good mood to play it. Because this song is called Songs for the Best Mood Ever. So hopefully this boosts the mood of like hype, you know? But yes, anyway, stop yapping. Let's start making some shit. And not shit, but like, you know. My mom and I donated because she had... Oh, that's right. Remember you telling me that. Is she going okay? Tell Mama Shatterkin that I hope she's doing well from Hook Sniffer. Long time no speak. I do apologize, but tell her I hope she's doing great. I really do hope. I hope she's doing well. My mom actually got her a mole removed from her shoulder because that was potential cancer as well. So honestly, hope. That's good. Oh, I have to remember to read this. That's good. She's in remission. Okay. So I'm a bit new to that stuff with recovery from cancer. Is that a good thing? Like in recovery, is that good? I'm just trying to remember. Yeah, Shadow Kitten. I think no one else is here but you. If not, hello YouTube or anybody else is lurking. Thank you for lurking, I appreciate it. But if you want to help me decorate this, you can, because if no one else is here, they can't be playing. Hang on a second. That was Mama Hook. Free cancer free. Oh, it means oh, that's so good. That's so good. That's good. I'm glad to hear. Glad to hear. That's awesome. So, what we want to do? You want to reckon we should clear the shelf here and keep everything that is okay to keep for Christmas? Do you reckon that'll be the best thing? Do you think that'll be the best thing to do? Or should I just get the actual Christmas there? Yeah. Oh, so sorry. The delay is really bad. I'll hang on. That says hi, Mama Hook. Okay, she said hi back. She has her hi back. She said hi back. But yeah, you reckon we should start the Christmas tree? I reckon we should start the Christmas tree, to be honest. Before that though, do you reckon we should... Oh, it's 8:45. That's good. That's good. So it's not that late for you. So let's open up this thing and get this tree going. What time do you guys normally start your Christmas stuff? Yeah, tree first? Oh, okay. Nice. So this is tight as hell. It's something that's sharp, so I'll be able to cut this open with. I have nothing to cut this open with. I don't have nothing here. Okay, I got nothing to cut this. Oh, Triceratops horn. This will always be helpful for me. So. No! The skull fell off. So this was a gift from a very close streamer friend of mine, Junkrat Silly. You might have seen them around. They gave me this like last weekend when we went to Brisbane City together. Look at that. Skeleton with the organs inside of it. Usually after Thanksgiving. Oh, when's Thanksgiving for you guys? Thanksgiving soon, isn't it? Is it around October? Oh, no, November. Halfway through November? Is that what that is? Is that normally through it? They keep on breaking these open with the Triceratops one. No, it's not hard enough. I'm have to get. No, the pelvis fell off. No. Man, this thing is not reliable, is it? November 21st. I have a feeling it was somewhat almost close by. Had a feeling. Let's use the tail. There we go. No way, Jose. This is so hard. Give me a second. Oh my god, this thing's falling apart. Nothing else that's sharp. I got nothing else here that's sharp. Ah, I can't do it. It's gonna break the whole thing if I'm not too careful. I don't want to break this either, even though it's already dead because it's a skeleton. What if I use the fuck train? Hey! Oh my god! Hello! Wait, what do you go? Is it Matt? No, it's nice. It's like something else. I'm trying to remember. I'm so sorry. This individual, this chatter who is here in the chat right now, Shadow, they are from the UK, and they have like different names. I'm trying my very best to remember. Just don't laugh at me, bro. I'm trying to be nice to you. I'm trying to remember what your name goes by, bro. Oh my goodness, it's Arky. Hello, Arky. Hello, Arky. Arky's from America. Shadow, Arky. Matt was right. Let's go! Yes! 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 Yeah, oh my goodness. That's awesome. How are we, boys? We're going well. Hope we're doing fantastic today, Arky and Matt. I almost forgot. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. How are we? We're going well? I forgot. So, Matt, you're from Wales, and Arky is from which part of America? Was it No. Ray is from Washington, but it is. Wait, what? You're exactly. Also, I got a chat reader, by the way. I got a chat reader. Yeah, I can read your chat on my phone. Doing alright. Michigan! I would never have gotten that. Still missing with my... Oh, okay, gotcha. That's good. Michigan. That's neat, Hookster. Very neat. It's so cool. And the best part is you can actually take it off too as well if you want to answer a phone call. See? Take it off. Hello, I'm streaming right now. And then you click on that like that. Instantly right there. That's interesting. Iliosa? Oh, are you from Ilios? From here? Oh, it's really cool actually. I recommend for doing IRL streaming or just in general. It's really cool. I got some Amazon for, I think it was $150. I think it was like $15, I'm pretty sure. By the way, this was from Wafflenator. It's the fuck train. He gave it to Big Audio Worm and I when we were in PAX a month ago. Because last year, when Big Audio Worm and everybody else was part of the stream last year, Waffle was having a tirade about something, complaining about me and Worm drinking, and he had to look after a bunch of guys. Me and Worm were thrusting behind Wafflenator while he was sitting there trying to explain the front of the camera. So he gave me and Worm a fuck train as a little gift. It's so sweet. It was very, very nice. Sorry, I'll hydrate. Thank you for the hydrate, Iki. By the way, this is from the amazing Astral Runic Ko-Fi. If I remember how to do the Ko-Fi command, I would definitely recommend it. This is Ko-Fi Astral Runic. And if you go onto Ko-Fi and type in Astral Runic, you could be able to buy these stickers here. But here's the thing: if you type in Hookster at the checkout, Hook, OOKER, Hooker, you'll get 15% off, 15% off. I'm a promo code on these stickers on the Ko-Fi website. How cool is that? It's So cool. It still blows my mind away. It still blows my mind away every day. It's fucking cool. I love it. Move the camera down here for a bit. Move this here like that. So this is the tree. The tree. We got a tree right here. Yeah, that's very cool. So if you want to support any particular people, that is from America, by the way. They're from America. Astral Runic is from America. And they do stickers, like very dark stickers. Like not dark, but like a bit depressing. But it's kind of funny because they like that kind of art. What the hell is this? Oh, hello, we got a band. If I could ban them for a bot, lucky. Oh, so sorry, Aki. What is this? I just found this. I just found this in my tree. This is from Christmas cards. Oh my god, they're Christmas cards. Oh my god, I just found old Christmas cards from last year. Since I changed jobs, I'm now a salesman now. I sell stuff to people now. From being a checkout chick to now being a salesman. It's a huge thing, by the way, which I'm very happy with. I got a bit of a pay rise, which is good. It all depends on commissions. And yeah, I get paid fortnightly, by the way, too, which is pretty cool. Leave that there for now. Another streamer has commissioned me for badges. Good shit, that's awesome. That's so cool, dude. Can someone please also check them out as well, please? Because you make some really nice art. So Shadow Kevin, I sell an equipment, you know, it's like Costco or Walmart, but it's more designed for the home equipment, electronics like coffee machines, blenders, TVs, aircon, fridges, vacuum cleaners, and ovens and microwaves and a lot of tech stuff too. I'm the tech guy, but I'm still a bit new to that stuff though. But I sell that stuff to families and give them the best deal and give them deliveries. At that stage, I will be, but right now I'm a bit earlier on. But yeah, it's very, very cool. I love it. So how the fuck do I take this off? These are ropes, aren't they? How to take this off? Oh, hey, I found it. Don't worry, I found it. All right, give me a second, chat. Let's go open this up. Oh, let's look at a giant bouquet of flowers. That's so funny. It's so hot in my fucking room. It's so hot right now. So let's take this out right here. Alright, let's just... What's this song? This song's sick. This song's really cool, actually. But yeah, whoever is here, please do not feel the need to stick around. Just a simple hello, or it made my day already. Seeing Aki, Matt, and Shadow Kitten already, you guys have made my day just from me talking to you guys again. Because it's been ages, it's been such a long time. Especially you, Aki. I haven't seen you for yonks, dude. Just a reminder, Aki and Matt, we are actually going to be playing Sea of Thieves tomorrow night. I'm playing Sea of Thieves with the fan favorite Fat Llama and another streamer, Celestial Rogue. And they are really funny people. And also another streamer called Frawns. They're called One Frawns, but they might have a different account because they lost their own account access. We're all going to play Sea of Thieves tomorrow night though, so please look forward to that. I throw the tree at the closest person near me. It's honestly, Aki, stream when you want to stream. Don't feel the need to stream. Feel when you want to stream. And if you want to stream, go for it. It does not matter what game. It does not matter what you're doing. As long as you're having a good time and people can see you're having a good time, you're already doing 50% of the whole idea of streaming. You're having fun. You're streaming. People can watch you enjoy. They can chat with you. They can chat amongst themselves. It can just be a whole thing. So when something happens on my games and I'm like, oh, that was crazy. Did you see that? People can reply back saying, yeah, we saw that. That because we all saw that together. And that's what makes streaming so special. And I have the undying privilege to meet some of these amazing people that I've met in person. Big Audio Worm, Junkrat Silly, Rice Spin, Frawns, Celestial Rogue, Mantis, Wafflenator, Crazy Bro, And I'm guessing, oh, Danny as well. I met Danny Canny. I met her in person last weekend for the first time. A new person, Irene, as well. So streaming is such an amazing thing. And you just have to be at the right place at the right time for anything crazy to happen. Like for me, for example, I was expecting to meet Worm ever when I first met the big audio worm himself. I've been to his house now. I met his completely amazing wife, Mrs. Worm. I was never expect that to ever happen. And that's why I love it. Yes, exactly. I remember being shocked when Llama raided me. Oh, really? Oh, I forgot that Llama raided you. Yeah, because we played Fortnite together. Of course she's gonna raid you, bro. Of course. I stream very rarely because I get hella anxiety spikes. Sorry to hear that. That's me with work. I went to my work Christmas party last night, and let me tell you, it sucked. I hated it. It was a struggle. I was really not doing that great at that time. Just because I was anxious to say something, I was anxious to do something, just because I did not know what to say and what to do. And my workmates were completely fine. They were trying their very best to include me in conversations. They were trying their very best to just to get me involved in the conversations, so I'm more part of the group. And guess what? I got an award last night. I got an award for of going above and beyond for customers. That was my award that I got. Just crazy. I wasn't expecting to ever get an award last night. It was a printed certificate. I'm gonna get it next week when I come back to work. Just really cool. It's very cute. Yeah, a little Christmas tree. Oh, it's a little bit bigger, but yeah. Hopefully this Christmas tree should be good though. Hopefully, because I'm still trying my very best on everything around. Matt, by the way, I have not forgotten your birthday request for Tuesday. Well, give you a time, Matt. I'll stream when you are awake and want to sit down for a bit while I'm playing Ratchet and Clank. By the way, I'm playing the newest Ratchet and Clank, by the way. Wrapped in Time or some shit. I have not played that ever. I only played up the first intro of the game, but I'll reset and just start the whole new one for you, bro. And just give me a time that you want me to stream for me to stream, so you'll be able to watch it all through it, okay? Yeah, it is. Yeah, so I got a certificate for going above and beyond for customers, because I one time was helping a little old lady and her grandchild, her granddaughter, I'm pretty sure. They were getting a new phone. So I was helping them out with something with the phone. I looked at the time and I was actually needing to clock off from work. You know what I did? I decided to go out the back. I told the customers, I'll be right back, give me 1 second. So I went out to the back, locked off, and returned to them at the front and continued helping them and serving them. And they said to me saying, oh, do you have to go to the bathroom or something? As a joke, because they didn't know what I was doing. I said, oh no, I just have to clock off so I don't get my boss in trouble so I can keep serving you guys. And the lady was so shocked, gave me a hug, almost teared, saying that is such a nice thing for you to do that, to continue on doing a job even after you clock out. And guess what happened? Last week when I had a day off, the same lady came back asking and demanding me to help her something, and I was not there, and she was like looking for me saying, where is he? It was so nice. But thankfully she got served by another person who's equally as nice as I am, so I'm happy about that. That's what you do. I need to keep track of the time zones through when you stream. Ad, okay. Oh, you got an ad? I'm so sorry. You're free. Welcome back. The best way I can really recommend it is type in on Google, what is the time zone for Brisbane, Queensland, Australia on Google, and you can be able to match it with your time zone. So for example, it is 1 p.m. right now for me. I'm assuming now, because I remember mentioning it was like 8 something for you right now, right? So that means it might be 9 p.m. for you right now in America, if it's 1 p.m. for me for here. So that's something you could be able to work around with that. Hopefully that'll give you a better idea how that works, because that's what I'm guessing from that, by the way. So yeah. 3 a.m.? What time is it for you right now? What? Oh, it's 10 p.m. for Aki, but oh, no, so sorry. I got mixed up with Shadow Kid, and I'm so sorry. Okay, so pretty much So it's 3 a.m. for you right now. Okay, so if I were to stream around 9 a.m. for Ratchet and Clank, or maybe 8 a.m. for you on Tuesday in Australia, would that be an early enough time for me to stream for you for your birthday? For Tuesday for Ratchet and Clank, not for Ratchet and Clank? I love Ratchet and Clank, by the way, man. I love Up Your Arsenal. I love Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2. It was so fun, so fun. I love it. It's so fun. It's really, really nice. I love Ratchet and Clank. I really do. It's one of my big things I love about Ratchet and Clank. Just the adventure and meeting all these amazing people. And the weapons are so goddamn fun. Love how fun the weapons are. Very, very fun. The cool thing about this tree is you can wrist rotate it if you're trying to like get some things out of here. Are you sure though? That seems early for you. Maybe I'll feel bad. No. I'm an early bird anyway. In the morning, I normally get up and go for like, oh, hang on, my hat's falling off. Shit, hang on. What's shit happening on me right now? Hang on. Give me a second. Normally with me, I would go for a walk in the morning and then go to the gym if I want to. But that is something I can decide whether or not I can go to the gym or not. I can go to the gym anytime I want. If it's for you and your birthday, bro, I would honestly take a gym day off and just go and play games. I don't mind doing that for you, bro. Oh, okay, 8 p.m. That's early. That's good. That's not bad. That's not bad. But honestly, oh wait, 10 a.m. would be 8 p.m. for me. Oh, okay. That's not bad. Oh, that's not bad. That's not when I stream anyway. I normally stream around 8 p.m. anyway. So Matt, would you rather me stream the daytime for my time zone? And is that easy for you? Because all you gotta do is just type in what is the current time in Australia, and then type in a random time like 3 p.m., 8 a.m., that kind of thing. Because I want to help out, I really do, but I have no clue how to help out. Speaking of which, I bad ADHD. And who is keen for Zootopia 2? Who is excited for Zootopia 2? I am so keen for Zootopia 2. Holy fuck, I'm so keen. It looks so fun. I love number 1. Number 1, Zootopia, was so good. Love number 1. I've watched that a couple of times actually with my ex of 5 years. Very, very fun. Very, very good movie too. So well made too. I'm sure the new one will be pretty good. I like it as reptile themed. I love reptiles and dinosaurs. The snake looks really fun. Looks really fun. Looks very fun. I didn't even know a second one was coming out. You didn't? But, bro, ban Arky for 2 seconds. I'm kidding. That's really cool. Okay, honestly, yeah. Zootopia comes out very, very soon. The time zone for the release dates can be very different because Australia and America, they get prioritized on different time zones or release dates. I think maybe America might get it first, or maybe we might get it first and you guys might get it a week later in America and UK as well. But yeah, very, very excited for Zootopia. I'm also very excited for Avatar 3, the Fire and Ashes. That looks so good. I know the storyline is going to be dog water. It's going to be so shitty, but it just looks so pretty. If you've seen the ads for Avatar 3, God, the visuals look stunning. It looks crazy. So the sad thing is they may not be able to make a 4 and a 5 because it costs so much money to make the movie. And in order to make 3, the money back they've spent to make 3, they need to be the top 5 apparently to break even. Because otherwise it'll be too expensive to make 4 and 5 apparently. So people are not interested in Avatar. They may not be able to get the money back they've spent on making the movie. Because Avatar is expensive. James Cameron waited so many years for the technology to evolve so he can make the things he wanted into the movies. It's crazy. It's crazy. I could be wrong, by the way, so take what I said with a grain of salt. Google it yourself. Say why there may not be an Avatar 4 and 5, and then they'll answer your question. I love Avatar. Avatar is one of those big movies how your mind gets blown away with how stunning the movie is, and how the soundtrack's amazing too. Love the soundtrack of Avatar. Avatar's soundtrack is phenomenal. I love the soundtrack for Avatar. So nice. I love it. Very, very nice. But yes, hopefully whoever is here right now is enjoying themselves. I sure am enjoying myself. So hopefully we continue on having a good time here. Hopefully whoever is here. For the lurkers, I hope you're having a good time with whatever you're doing. If I'm on the second monitor, if I'm on your phone, while you're doing something, hope whatever you're doing is working out very well for you. Yeah, the first movie was awesome, eh? Love the first movie. The ending song of the credits was spectacular. Amazing ending song. And the basic music as well is so good too as well. I love it. So nice. Very, very nice. What is this song? Hey! I have no clue what the song is. How these musics are not copyrighted. Alright. So hopefully... such a wild song. This is definitely copyrighted. Ah. That was definitely copyrighted. That might be better. Let's just, Yeah, we can do that for now, 40 minutes. Oh, that's fine. Hopefully that's okay. Going to bed. We're like, now, I had a lovely talk. Enjoy seeing you again. Happy to be on some more. Tomorrow night I'm streaming, so if you want to join, you can if you want to, bro. But have a good night, bro. I'm supposed to be heading out today, and I'm still up. Try and like go and get some sleep, bro. Honestly, get some sleep, bro. Once again, don't feel the need to be here. As long as we had a good time talking, that's what matters, bro. And by the way, Aki, if you're still listening to this, by the way, Llama and I got ourselves back into Fortnite. We've been playing with a couple of people. So if you go on the Kayla Wu stream, she's been streaming Fortnite for a bit. But I do want to get back into Overwatch though as well. That's another thing I want to try and get back into it as well as Overwatch. I can't remember how this shit works with everything here, with what's happening. Might get covered in lights, who knows. That's alright. That's pretty decent. That's a decent size tree. Not bad at all. Whoa, 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 I have no clue how the song goes. I'm so sorry. Wait, we're playing recently too. Really? That's awesome. Yeah. The Simpson collaboration is so funny and silly. I love it. Tomorrow night I'm playing Sea of Thieves, but maybe later on, not tomorrow night, I play some Fortnite. Hopefully that's okay. Like, is this the top? Yeah, the top. So hot right now, holy shit. So hot in my room. It's so hot. Holy shit. Oh, looks alright. Looks cute. Looks very, very cute. Like how it looks. Very, very cute. I'll definitely be covering this in balls and lights very, very soon. About that, my series. Oh, some more skins right here. But I'm pretty keen to play Sea of Thieves. I love Sea of Thieves. That is my guilty pleasure game. It is such a relaxing game. Of course, it gets very chaotic, but we plant the boys. Fun as hell. Get to Shackley on the game too. Oh, yeah. There's a community member who does the exact same thing. Spent lots of money on skins. I can't really say much because the last thing I spent on currency was Roadhog's Panda skin in Overwatch. So I can't say too much myself, but yes, people have been spending a lot of money on games. Very, very true. So Matt, if you're still there, Matt, I reckon I should get rid of all this non-Christmas stuff and replace it with Christmas stuff? And do you reckon I should put the gamer stuffs away or the gamer stuffs on the tree itself? I remember I asked Shadow Kitten, but I don't think Shadow Kitten heard me or wasn't here at that time. But if she does come back, I have a different opinion. We can move it around. Looks pretty good though. Looks alright. Pretty sick. Alright, we got a rope here. So let's put that rope away. Looks good though, eh? Looks nice. You can decorate it with Christmas stuff instead. Okay, yes. Okay, so we keep the gamer subs up there. Okay. So here. So we also got lights here as well. But we also got some stuff here as well. I should probably bring out as well. Oh no, hang on. It's here. You're so silly, Hook. Why are you so silly? That's all I have? That's crazy. I mean, I don't know if I like that. I might have to use this instead. Just fine, I guess. This is very long. Can I get light port for these? Give me 1 second. Like Tinsel's ad. Oh, sorry about the ad. Let me know when you're back. Back here? Okay, cool. Welcome back. Alright. So we got this, by the way. It's an LED light Christmas thing. I was thinking of adding on the second shelf because that's what that's what Shadow Kitten said. So I'm not too sure if that should be okay to do or not. So yeah. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty nice. So that's what it might look like there if I get rid of everything else, because as you can see, if you can see from there is all this shit here that I put away because of not Christmas stuff. Fuck. If only my room wasn't so crowded feeling I'd decorate. Also, that looks nice. Thank you. So can you not really change anything else? Can you not really? I thought you could. Sorry, man. Okay. But honestly, thank you, Aki, for what are you calling it? Viking while I was sleeping, bro. I appreciate the support. Am I missing anything? Oh, I missed it. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's awkward. Okay, yeah, pull this away, and then I put them back. Hey, Hook, been a minute. Hello, Shadow Slicer. Oh my god, Shadow Slicer? We got Shadow Kitten, and we got Shadow Slicer here. How are you, bro? How you been doing, bro? What's been going on, bro? Holy shit, bro. How's life, bro? The Overwatch been treating you okay? If you still playing Overwatch? We're doing Christmas decorations while drinking gamer subs. Hope we get to meet someday. Dude, it is completely up to fate to decide if we meet in person. Because remember, we're very far away, and remember the conversation we had before, how you offered to like save to get me over there, and I'll do like a vlog out of it. I still will never forget that offer you gave me. That made me tear, bro. It was so nice you suggesting that. I feel it's very expensive, but for me, whatever you want to do, I would love to go overseas and do like a vlog. You know how cool that'll be? That'd be so cool, bro. That'd be so fucking cool, bro. Fucking win, bro. Could be having help with my grandma. Dude, that's so nice, bro. Starting next year, if you want to do that, yes. But next year, I'm going to be going to Melbourne, Gold Coast. So that's Melbourne's October. Melbourne's in October, and Gold Coast it might be around my birthday in March or in April. So if you want to do that, yes, we can do that. It is up to you, bro. If you do that, that'll be so cool. That'll be so cool. I even do I'll do like a vlog, like a recording while on the plane. Everyone gives me all these questions, and I have to answer everyone's questions while doing a recording while I'm on the plane. I'll be like reading on my phone while the plane's on. People do related questions like saying, "Look, how do you feel you have a bomb on you right now on the plane that you're in?" And making people around thinking you have a bomb. I can imagine someone doing that. I can so see someone doing that. I don't think that's a good idea anymore. I hope your grandma's okay. Shout out Slice. I hope your grandma's doing okay, bro. I hope your grandma's doing actually okay, bro. I hope your grandma's doing okay. I hope your grandma is okay, bro. I hope your grandma's fine. Dude, why are you moving, cunt? Dude. Bro. This mic stand sucks. Holy shit, bro. I might have to do like that. Give me a second to read your message. We still can't figure something out, but I can't promise it. I'll do it when I've got nothing pops up. I also want to visit Arky in America, but America generally scares me. No offense to others. The way I feel, Matt, are you listening? See Arky. Forget about me, bro. I think you and Arky deserve to see each other more than you and I deserve to see each other. I can easily go over, that's great, but I feel you and Arky are a lot closer as friends and everything else. Please see Arky. I know America scares you, but I think you guys deserve to see each other. Please. Honestly, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. I'm sorry. Honestly, because I feel you guys are a lot closer. I would love to meet you, bro, because I've known you for such a long time. You're originally narrator, and you were like, you're so cool, bro, but I feel that you deserve to see Arky more than me, because I feel you and Arky are a lot closer. And I think you deserve that. I whole willingly, I'm just scared of things going wrong, and I've never been outside my country. Jeez, I forgot. Yes, traveling for the first time can be very, very intense. The thing that I would recommend when traveling for the first time, preparation and research. Doing that together will help you a lot. Learn how the airports work in America with the procedures and what you have to do and what you have to fill out with forms and the flight schedules and the airport stuff and exchange rate as well. That's a big thing as well you have to remember as well. Seeing things that go on in America and I hear, it's like holy moly. Oh, dude, yeah. Oh, there's a lot that happens. There's a lot that happens in America, but unfortunately, just hope that it does not affect your area. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can really think of, because you're trying to see someone that you care a lot about. Let that motivate you to push through the fear, because that's who you want to see. Like, I want to go to America. I want to meet Ray Ray. I don't want to meet Astral Runic. I want to meet Nez. But it's just hard because it's very expensive for me to get there. And yes, I do sometimes get that scare of just what happens if anything big happens in America while I was there. That will like be completely different for me. But that's something that I should really depends. That mostly just depends on where you're going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some states can be a lot more chilled. I mean, no, isn't Arky in Massachusetts? In Boston? I remember Arky saying that in Boston. Massachusetts. Michigan. That's complete opposite. Michigan. I don't understand how to book trips and it makes me anxious. Once again, just maybe get Arky and you and maybe another person to sit down on a Discord call, screen share something, and then just type out the things you want to do and do one thing at a time of booking, looking for accommodations, exchange money and everything like that. Because a lot of research can help you a lot in the future. Just doing everything in general just helps you in advance. I'm from Connecticut. We rarely make the news. Kentucky, I mean, sorry, not Connecticut. Kentucky. That's cool, bro. So then I've got now a fourth person in America. That's so cool. I forgot you're in America. I'm so sorry. And Shadow Kitten too. I'm so sorry. Shadow Kitten is from Chicago. They gave me a llama for a charity Research for Cancer Foundation. Okay. I used to write about trips and costs when I wanted to visit my ex-GF. Oh, well, maybe use that research and mix it in to what you want to do now with all the research and writing you are doing. You want to see your ex and use that knowledge and information you've gathered to see Aki. So that's how I feel about that. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of that must probably be the best way you can do it, honestly. Let's change some music. Let's change music. Hang on. I get distracted very, very heavily. 90s UK rock callouts, best of Game Grumps, or old bangers. Songs get hyped up. Alright, let's listen to this music that hypes up everyone. But yes, that's the best thing I can recommend. It's just looking up stuff that can help you research and everything like that. Best thing I can recommend. Yes. But yeah. Let's get back to it. Yeah. I keep forgetting I'm doing Christmas decorations, but now I'm giving advice. Oh, remember this? That's like a part of it. Well, I have a mini book. That's good. Use that mini book and make the mini book into a big book. Into like information, like bits and pieces. You don't have to do it in one session. You can do one subject you want to do and look up first. First off, how to get there. Look up which airport you need to go to. Then you look up how do you get to that said airport. That's the thing you should do. Take baby steps. What makes it the whole thing so anxious for people is because of how much you have to do in the full picture. That's why you crush the picture down into bits and pieces so you're not overwhelmed by the entire picture itself. You crop it down by different squares. How to get there, how long you want to be there for, and what to do, and also how to get back as well. There's some information you should probably consider, and just take one piece of that at a time, just so you're not overwhelmed. Plus money I need to take with me too. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's fine. You're getting there. You're knowing what you need to do with buses and everything like that. So you're getting there already, dude. So just keep on at it and just do some bits and pieces. That's the best way advice I can really give you. When I went to Japan for the first time, I had the privilege with my friend to go to a flight advice company that told us and booked things for us. Because we were like 18, 19 when we first went to Japan together. And that was very, very handy for us. But she cost a lot of money for us. Oh, really? I mean, talk to Aki about this, because this is not just you that want to plan stuff, but try and get Aki to help you out with what they feel they'll be the best thing for you. Because I feel Aki knows you more than I do. I'm only giving out the information from what I've gathered and from what I had experience with when I went to overseas. So I think Aki should be one of the people that should help you do bits and pieces. I'm not throwing Aki underneath the bus or anything. I'm just saying that I feel Aki knows what'd be easy for you and that kind of advice to help you not be so anxious and nervous. That's how I feel. When you play Overwatch sometime from the last season, that may with consoles cure PC rank now. Wait, really? Dude, I'm on PC Overwatch. We should definitely play some fucking Overwatch, bro. Tomorrow night, I'm playing Sea of Thieves for a little bit with my mates. So I feel that we can play some Overwatch tomorrow night if you're down for it, bro. Sadly, I got homesick. I get homesick. Oh, so that's some things you have to kind of push through or have to accept. And because, yes, I had a moment when I was last in Japan that I got homesick. I was in Japan for 2 weeks. And I think on my 11th day, I was like, bro, I miss my friends. I miss my mom and dad. But then I had my mate with me to help me push through it. And I just kept enjoying my holiday. Because, okay, the thing about homesick is, with my experience of homesick, the way I do it is, I think about, I'm in the moment, I'm in a new area, I'm having a great time, and I've got stories to tell to people back home. I got gifts to give to people back home. And that was what got me through being homesick from Australia in Japan. So that's something you can probably consider as well, maybe. Just think it like that. Ah, by the way. Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, okay. I don't know what that means, but that looks very, very sweet. Thank you for the support, Aki. Thank you for the support, Aki. We much appreciate it, Aki. Yeah, Shadow Slicer, we definitely need to play some Overwatch Bro sometime. I've gotten more and more casual with Overwatch. I feel bad for playing with people who are a lot more competitive than I am. That's what I feel bad about. So I feel that people, whoever I play Overwatch with, they have to understand that I've gotten to the point how I don't care if I win or lose games. I'm just having a good time with my friends. That's with Fortnite as well. We die in like second place, this close of winning the Victory Royale. I'm like, that's okay, next game. Who cares? I'm sweating, I literally cry for my mom. Dude, I'm 31 and I'll cry for my mom. Bro, last year when Papa Hook had his skull surgery, I had to deal with my Papa Hook being in hospital on a 5th floor in an emergency room having surgery on his head. Papa Hook was having very, very bad back issues and spine spasms. She was in the emergency ward. At one point, both my parents were in hospital for about 2 hours and I was by myself holding onto my mum's hand, making sure she was okay during the pain. And I had that shock through me, thinking, oh my God, both my parents are in hospital right now. And that freaked me the fuck out. And I cracked with my auntie. I cried a lot, and I'm 31, bro. No matter what age you are, it is okay to cry for the most normal thing ever. Your mom, your dad, anybody in your family, it is okay to cry. You are a bigger man or a bigger person. You actually cry and be honest with your emotions instead of trying to be tough and hide behind it and push it back down. It is okay to cry, bro. It's perfectly fine, bro. Trust me. I've done a lot of crying in my days, bro. And I think it's perfectly normal. So that's how I feel. They're good. They're good. They're honestly fine. I don't mind winning or losing. It's just the toxicity for me. Oh, true, of course. Oh yeah, we can play quick play as well. I feel, I'm not gonna lie, I think comp is a lot more chill than quick play. I'm sorry. I feel quick play is more sweaty. And I laugh at that, but I just don't have as much fun, I'm sorry to say. I'll try my very best to win in comp games, but yeah, I don't know. I don't mind playing comp or quick play. I think I just enjoy comp a bit more. I think it's a bit more relaxing in the ranking system. But yeah, they're fine. Thank you, Matt. They are doing much better now. Mama Hook came back from surgery a few weeks ago with a major back operation because she had a spine piece that was pretty much pinching her nerves that caused her legs to have in the spasms. But now we fixed that. So now she's getting a lot better with her back now. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks to a couple of months, Mama Hook can actually walk properly and actually have no back issues. And Papa Hook, he's doing great too. The brain surgery went completely fine, by the way, too. He's okay now as well. It's just that moment, that's what really hit me, you know? But they're doing fine now. And you'll be fine as well, bro, trust. Some consoles, way more sweaty than comp. Exactly, bro. It's so much sweaty than comp. I had the same blood transfusion recently, and during the night after we got home, I didn't feel right and had to lay in bed with my mom and cried a lot. She had to comfort me. UT bed is hate, autocorrect. Yeah, literally, yes. Yeah, I agree, bro, 100%. But honestly, transfusions can be very, very painful, bro. It's painful as fuck. It is perfectly fine to have someone that you love and care about to comfort you, bro. You are a deranged lunatic if you feel like you want to be alone when you're going through pain. I'm sorry. It's just such a natural thing to have someone with you while you're going through such pain. I dated somebody who was transfusing and transforming from female to male, and they went through a lot of pain, and I was with them a lot of the time, and they also wanted to be with their mum as well. So I've got the experience of that kind of knowing that pain through that kind of transfusions and that kind of stuff like that with having to do with the body stuff. So it's okay, bro. It's perfectly fine, bro. Yeah. Console does suck because it's easy access of fuckwits to play on, you know? So are the tablets like painkillers? Are they just like easier for you to like endure the pain? Because the thing you have to really understand is, I'm sorry to tell you, but make sure to not rely on tablets a lot because your body will start getting more used to it and require more of it. That's why Mama Hook is addicted to painkillers. So please just remember that, okay? Always rely on tablets a small amount, but it's you yourself that has to be more resilient to it, you know, because that's how it is. Iron Pain VD. I kind of know some of that, but yeah. Once again, just make sure that you're okay, you know? And I don't really know fully of the conditions. I'm just trying to like advise the basic thing because I don't want to say anything fucked up or bad just in case because I'm not inexperienced with that kind of stuff. I'm only saying what happened to my ex was because they'd gone through that similar cycle of going through a particular transfusion and the pain is apparently unbearable apparently. It's awful apparently. But yeah, as long as you guys meet each other in the future, when you see Arky or Arky sees you with their mum, as long as you're okay and you're happy, that's what matters. Jesus Christ, really? Oh god, I'm sorry to hear that about that, bro. That sucks, dude. Honestly. Is it because because Mama Hook needs iron transfusions once a year, and she hates it, dude. It's like so much pain for her. But yeah, thing is, the way I feel about that kind of stuff is, just think of the positives. Think of the things of why you're going through that pain. Because it's good for you. And you need it as well. That's another thing as well. Just think of when you're going through that pain, just remember why do you need to have this and what you're going to do after when the pain's done. Give yourself some motivation to do something. Reward yourself afterwards for enduring that pain. Do something that you enjoy. Eat something that you like. Just so that the pain is not as bad as when you're going through it. I hope this advice is actually okay, honestly. I hope this advice is actually okay. I really hope so. I'm trying my very best, and I don't want to say anything that might be like offensive or anything like that. Music's crazy. Holy shit, this music's wild. Okay, okay, chat, what do you feel like? Lights go on or the bubble's gone? Which one do you reckon? Do you reckon the lights should go inside the Christmas tree, wrap it inside of it, and then put the bulbs afterwards? What do you reckon, chat? I'll wait for someone to reply. Hang on, I'm having to open this up. Just realized I'm going to open this up. I don't have a knife or anything. I don't have scissors on me either. Shit. I don't have anything to break this out with. Oh, don't worry. I'm just that strong. I'm just that strong. Holy shit, I'm just that strong. Broke it out straight away. Bubbles first? Okay, sure. Alright. Okay, bro. We'll do bubbles first. Okay, we'll do bubbles first. Okay, what do you reckon we should do? Should we do like a layer of colors? Of like one layer of just like particular colors? Like from purple to like, or maybe like red at the bottom, yellow, green, blue, and purple. You reckon that would be okay? Just something that I was thinking of. Wait, hang on. When do you say we could play? Tomorrow night, because I'm playing Sea of Thieves. That could take a bit because voyages take quite a while, but it depends what time I start streaming. What do you like more? I like... Oh, hang on, there's an ad playing. I like red. But I don't mind either way. We can play Overwatch tomorrow night, but it just depends on a lot of how long Voyages can take on Sea of Thieves. Remember when I played Overwatch with you and I hit 5,000 ping? Yeah, bro. That was awful. I felt so bad for you, bro. Hopefully you had fun when we were playing. I reckon we do red at the bottom. Oh, that's fine. That's as long as you're laughing about it, that's what matters. Ah, okay. So we will put these ones here. Yeah. Whoa. So how you guys reckon we should do it? Do we just hang it like normal? Like around here? That? Oh shit. I don't have to do this properly. I forgot how to do this properly. That's understandable. I used to be big on SOT and I got to Pirate Legend and got bored. You're the Pirate Legend? Dude, who cares about Pirate Legend? Just do one random quest with your mates and just see how you guys do it. That's how I feel about it, at least. The way I feel about Sea of Thieves is... Oh my god, this fucking board. Okay, what I feel about Sea of Thieves is, who cares about the statuses and what the missions are? Just have a good time. And this does not matter about that kind of stuff. That's how I feel about it. Do whatever. That's how I feel. Oh god. Did she say, I want you to love me like a hot pie? That's hilarious. Oh, that's how we do it. Okay. I like that. I like that. That's my friends also stopped playing. That's understandable. Sorry to hear that. You got Funko ads? That's great, I love that. Oh, come on. Whoever is here still, thank you for being here, by the way, guys. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. I was honestly not expecting people to be here. Being for real. I was not expecting it. Shit. Who's excited for Wicked 2? So I just want Glitch Trap Funko and I love Happy Live. I saw that the ping and waddled in. So funny. What was that show called again? I think I recognize that what you're saying. Glitch Trap. What's Glitch Trap? I didn't even heard it before. What's Glitch Trap, bro? Educate me, please. What is that? Is that something that Junkrat Silly should be aware of? Doesn't help that I have a Series X Xbox in default storage. And SOT's 97 gig. Yeah, and SOT is huge now. Not as big as Call of Duty, but SOT is massive. So, I mean, Xbox Series X is pretty good. I used to have an Xbox Series X, bro. They're good. I like Xbox Series X's, they're good. They're very nice. Not gonna lie, the lights might be a bit difficult to put it on. I don't know why. But we'll see how we go, though. Cross that bridge when we get to it. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. Oh, okay. How do you feel about the next Friday Nights at Freddy's? How do you feel about that, chat? Who's keen for that movie? The only thing I care about Five Nights at Freddy's is as long as people enjoy it, that's what matters. As long as people are enjoying it, that's all that matters to me. I never got into Five Nights at Freddy's. I didn't really get into the hype of it. I know a lot of it because of Markiplier, but I never got into the franchise of Five Nights at Freddy's. I know the song, I know all the memes and everything like that, but I just never got into it, you know? Hard to say. I respect the hype around it though. Definitely respect the hype though. It looks like a really nice franchise to get into. the second movie goes well, they will do more. Yay! Got with everything installed. It's like 300 gigs. Yeah, it's massive. COD's massive. You know why? Because COD has so many game modes, and they also want to make the game look so pretty and make it look so epic with all the visuals and everything like that. That's why there's so much stuff you have to install, like all the patches and all the updated stuff and everything like that. Some people still play some Call of Duty stuff as well. It's pretty wild. I'm 20 now, so grew up with that era. Oh, yeah. My Call of Duty when I was growing up as a kid was Black Ops 1. Now, it's thanks to my friend, by the way, too. My ex-friend, sorry. He was wanting to play Call of Duty with me, saying, oh, I bet you I'll wreck you in Call of Duty. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So we versed each other on Call of Duty Black Ops 1, and I beat him every single time. But then he started getting more and more into it, to the point how he became obsessed with it. So we just kept on playing the game together. He ended up beating me. But God, he was so into Call of Duty. He was playing all the zombies. He was playing with friends around Australia. He made some pretty good friends, apparently. But yeah, he was very much lots and lots into Call of Duty. I still look at my profile a lot because, again, I made this account to see his stream to begin with. Really? Oh my god. That's so cool. Really? Oh my god. Do a follow page. So type an exclamation mark, follow, and that, or follow age, like follow age in one word with an exclamation mark at the front, and it should tell you how long you've been following me for. Some people have been following me for ages. There was some guy who followed me for like a long time, and I still see him and come around time to time. Yeah. 3 years and 9 and 1 month. Matt! Jesus Christ, you've been following me for ages, Matt. Great day, same day I followed. Yeah, bro. That's so cool, bro. How'd you find me again, Matt? I forgot how you found me, bro. You win. Oh, I think someone been following me for a little bit longer that's still around, but you're like one of the OGs, bro. Trust, you're one of the OGs. That's why I have a lot of respect for you, Matt. It's why I wanted to keep on commissioning you more with art. That's why I love the little hooks, bro, when we were doing the sub thing. Those hooks are so cute. That's why I kept the actual symbol of the hook and added like more effects to it. Oh, really? Oh my good god, the TikTok days. Oh, that's great. That's funny as hell. I love that. There's a lot of TikTok stuff, bro. Nice TikToks, bro. I think I made friends with a couple of people from TikTok as well. And back in those days, I was focusing a lot of like Roadhog highlight reels. Roadhog like play the games, and I was on Instagram a bit more with the highlights of play the games with Roadhog. But yeah, those were fun. They were really good actually. I remember that. Very much fun. Very fun. I was more into Battlefield playing with my dad. Oh, that's sick. Fun fact: the Battlefield 3, my dad got all the sniper metal in a tank for like 1.5 miles. Crazy. That's so cool. He found my TikTok. Yeah, exactly. He found my TikTok as well. I want to post more shit on TikTok a bit more often, but there's so much I gotta do, bro. I want to focus a little bit more on my YouTube channel just because I feel that YouTube's a lot more easy to access, and I can do a lot more longer content, like VODs that people want to watch, if in case I miss out on stuff. Hopefully, I don't know. I just feel like that YouTube for me has a bit more value because I can edit videos and that kind of stuff. But with TikTok though, I can get clips that people made for me, and then I can upload it to TikTok. That's really cool about your dad though. Dude, Battlefield 1 was the Battlefield I played a lot of with my ex-friend. Yeah, Battlefield was great. That was really cool. Battlefield 6 looks insane. I would love to play some Battlefield 6. But that cost me money. Following since May 16, 2023. Well, you looked it up, bro. You could have just done the command that Matt did, bro, before. Exclamation mark follow age. You could have done that, bro. Oh shit, another one, yeah. Oh, what the fuck was that? Oh jeez, Rick. Morty, we gotta fucking make a Christmas tree, Morty. I say Christmas, Morty. Didn't know that, yeah. Exclamation mark, follow age. There's other commands you can do as well. You have to be subbed in order to do those commands, I'm trying to say. There's like different funny things to be able to do. Wait, I sent you an example of making the for the badge wait. I might send you the example I'm making for a badge commission. Yeah, sure, bro. Give us a look. Send it on Discord. I'll go on my phone in a second, bro. When you send. I would love to see it, bro. I would love to see it, bro. Against everything. Yeah, I feel like that small part should be there and on the street, then afterwards I feel. Yeah. That's sick. That's so cool. That's actually fire. That's really cool, bro. And the theme is, I'm guessing, is the animal that you're doing. And I love the shades too, the little things on it too. So are you just doing different leveling of that? Or like how you did with my hook, how it was like different colors? That's sick, bro. That's really cool, actually. I love that. That's awesome, bro. It looks good. Well done, bro. Vampire, that theme is vampires. Oh, cool, cool, cool. I had a feeling it was that. That's really nice though, bro. Very proud of the dude. I'm sure the person's gonna love it too, bro, because you have really good art choice, bro, and artistic taste. I still love the Cassidy and the Hanzo stuff that you did back in the day. They were so cute, bro. Like, I don't mind the whole, like, shipping with the same gender, as long as no one's getting hurt, there's no offensive stuff, and as long as people are okay with it, that's all I care about. No one's getting hurt either from it. Very considered like that. Because people have their right to enjoy things, like, as long as no one's getting offended or getting hurt by it, that's all matters. At least. If it will still have different ads, smoke and crown and wider mouth. That's cool, dude. That's cool, bro. Maybe soon in the future, when I get some time, I should definitely do for something, bro. I feel like that's really cool to do. Stuff I gotta do still. That looks good though, regardless, bro. I hope the person's actually liking it so far. Hi, what am I doing? Rotate. Aki. Oh, and that's right. Aki's going to sleep. Matt, what are you guys doing for Christmas, bro? Anything you guys doing for Christmas? Okay, another question as well for Shadow as well. Shadow and Matt, what was the best gift you ever got for Christmas? Like, that changed your life forever, like a toy, a console, a game, an item that like shaped your childhood because you got given that gift for Christmas. Mine was Nintendo 64. Also wants me to make his server icon. That's good. More money for you, Matt. That's awesome, bro. Good to hear, bro. Keep up the hard work, bro. You deserve it. Very well done, bro. I'm very proud of you, Matt. Very, very proud of you, bro. Never forget that, bro. You have people that support what you do, and you do a great job with it, bro. So once again, very proud of you, Matt. Keep up the hard work, bro. You don't think much. I was happy your mom's there. Oh, that's so nice, bro. That's sweet. That's really nice to say, actually. It's not matter about the gifts, as long as you have people with you that you enjoy being with. That's what matters, bro. Very, very nice to say. You know what's funny? Remember how I told you guys I went to Japan for the first time? Guess who was the name of the guy that went to Japan? Same name as you, bro, Matt. That was my very first friend that I went to Japan with for the very first time. He made it so fun. Because Matt's gay, and Matt is so fun to be with. He's so funny. He has great fashion choices, and God, he made everything so enjoyable. So I'm gonna mention that for now on. I'm gonna call him Matt, but not our Matt that we know, but my Matt. I thought you might know that. Just to make it a bit more funny, you know. I was gonna mention it for a bit ago, and I didn't click two together, but I'm like, that's right, they have the same name. Completely forgot about that. They are so nice. Yeah, I miss Matt. That was so cool. I knew his brother a bit moreish, but later on when I went to Japan with Matt, my friend's younger brother, I actually got a lot more closer to Matt than my actual original mate. So I knew his older brother back in high school. Went to class together and everything like that. But when I went to his house and met Matt, I was like, oh, this guy is pretty fucking sick. He's funny. He likes Pokemon. I love Pokemon. And he had all this funny humor. He made everything so fun and silly. So afterwards, when he graduated high school, I remember this conversation. I was on the phone. Hang on. I was on the phone, like the wireless phones, like the home phone, before mobile phones. I was talking just casually, and my mate's like, "You want to go to Japan next year?" I'm like, "You know what? Why not?" And we were so casual about it. And at the end of March, at the start of April, the cherry blossom season, we went to Japan, and it was the best experience ever. So cool. Hey, Shadow. I'm probably about to hop on some Overwatch with some friends and stream some, unless I get lag spikes like I did last night. Honestly, if you're still streaming while I'm streaming, I'll raid off to you, bro. Because after I finish this decoration, I'll be heading off myself, so I can get myself ready for tomorrow night's stream. I wish I could hang out with friends more. They don't respond when I ask the side to let me go with in particular. That sucks to hear, Matt. I'm very sorry about that, bro. If you live in Australia, I bet you'll be completely invited to everything we all do together, Matt. Let me reassure you that. There are some people that deserve to have friends around, no matter who they are. That's the way I feel about that. Because as long as you're having a good time, everyone around should have a good time as well. I am sorry to hear about that, Matt, though. The way I feel that those kind of people, they should maybe considered not to be as close friends, because if they don't respond to you or invite you to particular areas, sorry, Matt, you might have to consider getting different friends, maybe. Because people should not be treating like that to their friends. Everyone deserves to hang out with each other. But yeah, Matt, if there was a world that you were in Australia, you'll definitely be doing stuff with me or somebody else, bro. You'll be with Supernova, with the convention we went to last weekend. Doing all the cosplays, hanging out with Junkrat Silly, Raspin, and Prawns while we're having sushi, while I was drinking soju with broth in ramen. Yeah. Just let me tell you that, bro. I know some people don't really say this that much, but if you were in the same country as I was, I'll be including you in everything we'll be doing. Promise you that, bro. Don't forget that you have friends that are close by around the world. Song's actually fucking fire. Song's fucking sick. I'll shrug it off now and tell myself that they have new friends and lives. That's the unfortunate thing. People can just they get very distracted, you know, by a lot of things. How they just be like, yeah, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's just sad, you know. It's Sachin bit. It's true Sachin bit. Oh my god. I think once we add all the shit onto it, it should be fine. It's not gonna fall, by the way. Let me show you. It's not gonna fall. Look at that. Almost finished. Almost finished, yeah. Let's put this together. Not gonna lie, when these things fall off, when I'm putting the lights on, I'm more likely to mix these up. But Shadow, good luck to you, bro. Hopefully, Shadow, Slicer, your streams go well. And I'm sorry that I can't join because I'm doing shit. I'm sorry. Arky's back. Hey, Arky, don't cry, Arky. Don't cry. The only thing I can suggest is always be there for each other. If you need someone to talk to, be that person to talk to. If they want a shoulder to cry on, be that shoulder. That's all I can really say about that. Dude, this sucks so much. This sucks so much like Donkey Kong's vagina. Prosper. Do that here. I can. Aw, it's even worse, bro. Fuck. Ah, damn it. Hang on, I know what I'm doing here. I have no clue what the fuck I'm doing. Ah, damn it. No, this sucks. Hang on. Wait, there we go. So what happened is my microphone sucks. My microphone is like here, for that. And if I move that way, the weight of it is just too much. So I have to figure out why it is that. Yeah. I can't. Sucks. Oh, hang on. What if I did this? Use the box. The box is just too small. Okay, hopefully that's fine. Hopefully. Box, please. Box. Please, box. You piece of shit, box. I might just put this here. It's that heavy. It's pushing the thing out. Oh, that's fine-ish. It's gonna fall off. God, give me a second. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. I feel so awful that I don't go out much now, especially when I technically lost everyone now. I'm so sorry to hear that, bro. As long as you have people they can talk to and play games with online, that's all that really matters, bro. I'm kind of the same thing. I don't have any friends much outside of streaming or anyone online. I've got my two little brothers with their own problems in their own lives that's on the Gold Coast, and that's like an hour away. So, and I feel a little bit lonely sometimes when that happens. But as long as I've got people I can hang out with and talk to, that's all that really matters. Something I can think of I can do is bring my chair over like this. That might be a lot easier to do. Bring my chair. Wait a second, sorry guys. Fuck you. Face the power of the strength of the chair. Fuck you. Ah, fuck. Oop. It's okay now. Alright, that should be a lot better now, hopefully. Ah, hang on. Okay. That looks fucking silly. That looks so silly, holy shit. That's better. Okay, now move the camera. Okay, that's better. My parents pester me about going out. I do what I when there's something to do because last time I went out, I went for a World War full police involved. Oh, that's terrible. Is that when he got harassed by those fucking cunts? I remember you telling us that. What a shitty experience to get into. I hope you're doing okay now from that experience, bro. I remember you telling us about that. Or was it something else? Better not be something else, bro. Oh, yeah, got you. It's unfortunate, but it's not healthy to keep yourself locked up, bro. Be real, bro. It's not healthy, bro. I know there's shit that can happen, but unfortunately, it's just not a healthy mindset to keep yourself locked inside. It's really not. You have to eventually go outside. Try going out in different times. That's like that avoids getting any interaction with that kind of thing. Maybe. Just trying to think. I don't know if this is gonna be helpful or not. I'm just trying to think for you. Yeah, visit your sister tomorrow? That's nice. No, today, technically. Oh, that's right, because it's fucking late for you right now, bro. I forgot about that. I need to say my bad, bro. My time for you to say my bad is when you say slur on my stream by accident, or you killed someone. That's the only time you say my bad. I need to say my bad, bro. I hope you've been having a good time here though, regardless, Matt. And Aki as well. Hope you're doing well as well, Aki. If you're lurking, bro. Go to sleep, bro. Aren't you supposed to be sleeping, bro? Yeah, do not worry. I kind of feel your pain. Well, I have a bad habit of going to the movies by myself and sometimes drinking as well. And it's not a good habit to get into, only because I have no one to go to the movies with, and I like going to movies. And I spend a lot of money on movies because it's lonely. It's not nice. So I kind of know how it feels, bro. It's not a nice feeling at all, bro. So remember, there are people out there who also have problems like that as well. So never feel like you're the only one suffering through that kind of thing. Never feel that way. Okay? There are people out there who suffer this. We are all here for you, bro, as well. Last time I went to the movies, I fell asleep during it. Hey, Raspin, how are you, bro? Dude, what movie was it you fell asleep in, bro? Not even Raspin, it was probably Sonic 3. With Shadow the Hedgehog being Keanu Reeves. It was so boring for Raspin, he just fell right asleep through it. Wait, you should link it, bro. Like, Raspin, you should link my Twitch, bro. Make it funny. Hope you're doing well, Ras. How's your Sunday going for you? Have you had a great time last weekend, bro? Superman, but near the end. Oh yeah, near the end got a bit like, yeah, I don't know. I don't mind the movie, James Gunn's Superman. I thought it was pretty okay, but I can see why people didn't like it. I thought it was okay. I'm not a fan of Superman as a concept. I'm not a fan of Superman that much because I think he's overpowered. But I don't mind the movie. But I can see why people did not like it much. I can definitely see why people don't like it. Did you hear that? That Warner Brothers might be getting bought out by somebody apparently. I don't know the full detail. I could be wrong. But yeah. So they may not get DC Universe, apparently. Depends on who the buyers are. There's so much stuff going on here. I should probably be adding a lot more balls. The lights are going to be pretty interesting. The lights here, they're going to be very interesting how the lights are going to go. The lights are going to be very, very interesting. I have no clue how it's going to work, but the lights will be very cool. So that's the start of it there. Let's actually see what the lights even look like right now. I don't know. I've been wanting to walk to the store, but won't be able to without someone with me. Oh, because what happened to the event that happened to you, Matt? They try to take you different routes, maybe. Don't see you, maybe. Oh, it's pretty fucking sick, actually. It looks fucking cool. Oh my goodness. Very, very nice. Very, very bright. You like bright things? Have you got anything for the top? No. I might have to borrow some Christmas decorations from Mama Hook, maybe. Maybe. It all depends. Yeah. We're gonna do the lights afterwards though, see how we go. I love how all the pink and purple now on the very top now. It's funny as hell. Love that, it's great. Oh, the lights okay? Yeah, the lights are right. I mean, do that, maybe there, so you'll see a bit more of the lights. Should be fine like that. So hopefully that's good angle's okay. Angle's off by a bit, isn't it? Hello? Oh. There we go. Get our dinosaur properly. Oh. That looks alright. It's cute. Good. Huh? Oh. Yeah, the things I'm looking forward to most for Christmas is Avatar 3, Zootopia 2, and have you guys heard that Anaconda is coming back? The Snake movie and Jack Black and Paul Rudd in it. They're like doing a reboot knockoff thing, how the story is actually them filming an Anaconda movie, but they ended up finding an actual snake in the film that they're filming at in the Amazon rainforest. And it's on Boxing Day, by the way, too. It's a silly time. I love it. It's so silly. I would not mind if I'm not working on that day. I would actually try and do it. There's so much merch that I want to buy for my birthday, but it's pricey. That's insane. Yeah. It's pretty wild. Very, very wild. That's alright though. Yeah, I guess it's wild. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. It's competing with Avatar for a couple of weeks. Avatar's gonna have a couple of weeks of just having the spotlight for a bit, and Anaconda is going to come out with Jack Black and Paul Rudd. It looks silly, but I'm looking for it. It looks funny. I did a reaction on my reaction channel on YouTube. £76 for a hoodie you want? Send it to me, bro, so I can see it. I want to know what it looks like, bro, and why is it 70 fucking pounds? Make you feel better, Matt. I got a hoodie merch, and I think they're like the cheapest I can make them, I'm pretty sure, I think. Also, speaking of which, right? Sam, you fuckwit. 100 bits! You are a fuckwit! Yeah, sure. Fucking hell, bro. The fact that you spent 100 bits to make me fucking shit my pants, you're a fucking asshole. Fuck you. Holy fucking Jesus. Actual fuckwit. I hope you're doing well, man. Fuck you, by the way. Hey Kayla, did you tell Sam to do it? I'll ban you. We're doing well, Kayla and Turbo Sam. It's Matt. Originally, before that was a narrator, but now the Matt now. So that's the person who is in Pumpkin Cerberus. I knew it! Fuck you. I knew it. I knew Kayla going to do it. Sam will never do without being told to. Kayla's a manipulator, confirmed. Kayla's a manipulator. Kayla manipulates people. Kayla is Mucky Ma from Chainsaw Man. I didn't even know Sam was in here. Sure you didn't, bro. Sure. Kayla, are you excited for Sea of Thieves tomorrow night? E, Fat Llama, and Franz and Rogue are going to play Sea of Thieves tomorrow night. Are we excited? I'm very excited. That's what they all say. But yeah, hopefully we're all doing well. But yeah, say hello to WeCourt. Fuck is this? What is this? What is this song? It's a weird song, but yeah. Originally they're called Narrator, but now I call them Matt. And they are Pupin Pridis. Yeah, that's what they that's the narrator is. Let's look at let's go look at a hoodie that that Matt wants to get. That looks pretty cool. That's a cool hoodie. That looks nice. It's Welsh. It's black and red like my color. That's really neat. The sleeves look cool. I like the sleeves how they did that. The back of it's really nice, cool too. I read that as foreskin. I'm sorry. That looks cool. I like the little ride at the front there too as well. The sleeves look so nice. That's so cool. That's what it looks like again. Yeah, really cool. Very, very nice. Wait, so your name is in Welsh? Oh, now I get it. Looks cool though. Looks very, very cool, Matt. Alright, let's keep on going with this, because it's getting later and later. It's 2 o'clock now. I want to try and get this all done by before 4 o'clock. So I think Shadow might still be streaming, so I railed to Shadow. And thank you for the like, Kayla. Pupin means pumpkin. Pupin? I think that's what it says, Pupin? I think? Pupin? I don't think that's what it means, Pupin. But yeah, I'm very excited for your birthday, Matt, because I'm playing Ratchet & Clank. I have no idea if any of these musics are copyright or not. I have no idea if they're copyright. Songs you need to know. Play this music. Yahoo! Yeah, I'm actually very excited for Ratchet & Clank. Very, very excited. Love Ratchet & Clank. Who's your favorite character in Ratchet & Clank from all the series, Matt? Who's your favorite character? Oh no, what happened? Are you okay? The stream die? It's a nice song. I forgot his name. If you tell me which game they're from and what they look like, I might remember it. Ooh. Marta Hulk. No, I better. Ah! Yeah. But he was the Lombax at most. At most. He was a Lombax, so he was like Ratchet basically, because Ratchet's a Lombax, isn't he? Okay. I'm not too sure which game that was from though. Shit. Remember those cartoons? How they have a box full of the Christmas lights in those Christmas episodes in those old cartoons, like really old cartoons. They pour all the on top of it, of the empty tree, and they all somehow go onto it with ease. I wish it was like that. It was like that. So funny. Oh yeah! Oh my god, man! I'm good. I can't believe I remembered that. That's actually so cool. I cannot believe I remembered that. I think it was called A Crack in Time. Oh, that might have been one of the only games that I'd never played properly. I think. Because I remember Crack in Time, but I never... Oh, Clank in Time. Was it Clank in Time? Because that was all about Clank, wasn't it? This Clank got separated from Ratchet, didn't he? Oh no. Okay, don't worry. Oh my goodness. I was put this through here. I probably. Oh my god. Oh my god. One moment, let me get the picture. Yeah, Ricebin might know. So yeah, Matt, Ricebin asks, was it the grey one that was in playing Crack of Time? Alistair, no idea, sorry.
Shut up, bitch ass!
Fucking Jesus fucking Christ! What the fuck? Who did that? You're a fuckboy, Sam. Fuck you, Sam. Jesus fucking Christ! That made me jump. Shut your bitch ass up! You are an actual fuckwit. Saying an ad. What? Ah! What the fuck was that? Thank you for that, Sam. Fuck you, Sam. Fuck you. Fucking hell, dude. That was so scary. I might have to maybe consider leaving this on for now because it's gonna fall apart with all these lights here. I might have to, yeah, see how I go for this one here. I'm free. Welcome back. I need to do this. Like, do you start from the bottom and wrap it around it? I might just take it off like that. I might just do that. Come on. Oh, no, it's already falling apart. No, there we go. Hey, oh, no, flip. It flipped over. Oh, there we go. About these things, you have to separate them so quickly. Ah, shit. The fuck? It just keeps going. It literally just keeps going. Let's keep going. Ah. I think that one player was Ratchet & Clank Tools of Destruction, an awful one. Nice, dude. His name was Alistair, you think? Oh, nice, bro. I forgot about Tools of Destruction. Was that on PSP? Because I remember there was a couple of Ratchet & Clank games on PSP that I never played. I know Clank in Time was on PSP. I never played it, though. I only played the first 3 Ratchet & Clank games. Oh, nice. It was on PS3. Oh, I never played on PS3 then. I think back in those days, at that time period on the PS3, I didn't play much Ratchet & Clank back then on PS3. I think I was growing a bit out of it when I was growing up in high school. Okay, so... Oh, God, this is going to be very hard to do. How am I to do this? I might have to take this off maybe because I'm going to get caught so easily. Hang on. What was that? Shit, destroy my fucking... Oh shit, hang on. No! Fucking Jesus Christ. Fuck you, I heard that. Oh my good God. That's so funny. Fuck you. Fuck you. Almost got me too. Uncharted 2 was the shit. Love Uncharted. I played all the Uncharted. That's what I was playing. Instead of Ratchet & Clank, was all the Uncharted and God of War. God of War Resurgence as well. No. Oh, hang on, let's realize. Suck it. I have to turn down the music, I'm pretty sure. I feel like the music's too loud for me. The guy who was in Nathan Drake was Supernova. Was he really? That the one we just came back from? The one we just came back from? Alright, is that not too bad or? Oh, that's really? I didn't know that. You guys just hear the music, by the way? Music okay, by the way? Yeah. Alright. Okay, so now music's just there, and I can just be a lot more vulnerable. Shit. The start of it. Oh, it's down start. Down start. It's okay, guys. Down start of it. Okay, so did I just tie it around there like that and just like that? That'd be a better option to do. There. Like there. Like there. Going further and further in to my insanity. Did I ever oh my god, my go-to game on PS3 was Far Cry 3. Loved Far Cry 3 so much. It was so fun. Crazy storyline too. And Bioshock. I played Bioshock 1 and 2 on the PS3 as well. And Prototype. Prototype was great too. Love Prototype. That was a shit, bro. Prototype was... Oh no, that was on Xbox. No, Prototype. That was Prototype. Played Prototype on the PS3. That was so good, bro. Love Prototype, bro. That was so good, bro. Cool. Oh, it's gonna be even harder and harder doing this. Shit, bro. Hang on, there we go. There we go, there we go. There we go. Trying to do like different layering on here. Trying to be like as tight to the tree as possible as well. Fuck. Come on. There we go. Come on. There we go. Oh no, yeah, call, don't get caught, please. Why are you caught, bro? Where are you getting caught from, bro? Shit. No! My first casualty. First casualty. There we go. Shit. Oh, come on. Oh, it was not even halfway yet. There's so much lights here. Jesus Christ. Dude, what the why can't I tuck it in now? No, what's stopping it from getting in? Oh, there you go. Oh, Jesus Christ. There's some gonna fall for sure. That's something I have to kind of make do, I think.
Haha.
Hey!
Yes, I am first.
Who's first?
You all shall bow before my
Who's
greatness.
first? Kayla's here first. Hey, Kayla. Happy to see you being first, Kayla. Yeah, I'm just gonna like just wrap it around, to be honest, eh? Fuck this. Oh no. Why are you getting trapped, bro? Go, go around, go around, bro. No, get in there, bro. Dude, this is so much messier than it was before. I think maybe we should have put in the balls last. Yeah, sorry, Matt. I can't regret putting the balls on first. Because the lights are gonna make it so much harder to put on. We're gonna put that there. Come on. Shit. Ish. Come on. Ish. Ish. Oh, dude. Huh. Ah! Fuck. It's still going! That's crazy, it's still going! Oh no, fuck. Dude. Ah. There we go. Ah, oh god. The best thing I could do is just pop everything at the very bottom and just like that. Better off, honestly, the way I feel about it. Ah. Ah. Oh my god, there's a fucking puddle here, bro. If I can maybe... Oh, that might be a good idea, actually. Just pile it on everyone else, maybe. Maybe. So, get it. Yeah. There. Have it here. Oh, what can I even put on as a weight? Plant from Harry Potter. Oh, I won't be able to fit it all. I mean, unless I can wrap it around there. That. Fully hook it onto it. Oh, shit. Come on, no, come on. No. Oh, fuck. Okay. What the fuck? Okay. Then over here. Go like that. Then we can eventually bring it around like so. Okay. Bring it that way. Well, yeah, it's... Is it really stuck? No, it's not. I think it was stuck, but it's not stuck. There. But here. Shit. Fuck. Sorry. Okay. Ah, shit. That's... Yeah. And then... There we go. Looks good. Alright, who's here for Christmas? Looks good. Looks alright. Looks fucking cool. Ah. Cool. Okay. Ah, Jesus Christ. To hang some of these something on here as well. Looks good. Looks nice. Yeah. Like a little pile here too at the very installed. Good. Damn Christmas stuff now. So Mama's got the Sea of Thieves installed, which is good. Dude, everything gets caught. Oh no, holy shit, bro. Everything gets caught. Dude. The whole chair can't be like... Oh, there we go. Oh. Fire hazard waiting to happen. But which part? Looks good. I like it. Looks nice. Looks good. Looks good. Alright. It was missing like particular stuff now around. That's the only... There we go. Just push in. Easy. All of it. Okay, so we got some more stuff here. The cartoon did it.
Later.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, fat llama. Hello, fat llama. Merry Christmas, fat llama. Shit. How are we going, llama? How are we, llama? Going well, llama? Let's see you do a better Christmas tree, bitch. How about you make a better Christmas tree? Bet your one looks fucking terrible compared to mine. Mine looks way better than yours. Yeah. Oh, I know what to do. Oh! I know exactly what I'm gonna do.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
Sleepy. That was cool. Can Yoshi? Yeah, Yoshi can stop there. Hey, Yoshi's a star. Yoshi's a star. Seeing fucking Yoshi, not making it easy. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, hang on.
Nobody would be crazy enough to build a boat out of glass!
The actual sound effects work now, finally. I don't know how I fixed it, but I fixed it now. The sounds now work now. This looks so good. Look at Lava. It's the guy. It's Yoshi. Fuck. I love how Lava doesn't say anything, just does like memes. That looks good though, it looks good. I'm happy how it looks. It looks good. Looks very, very good. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. How are we gonna do this though? Hang on. So it's what's gonna look like when it's going to go dark. So that's pretty good. So I reckon we just get rid of all this stuff here, put it all away, and then that should look a bit better, I feel. I think. Maybe I would put everything in here actually. Put everything in this box here. So that so when I put everything back, I can put it back where it was before. The penguin, T-Rex, my mouse, I'll definitely have to keep the mouse. And probably the Nerf gun, to be honest, because Nerf gun's good memory, but Nerf gun's only special for a little bit. That's all. Dinosaur as well, sorry, Zom. Fortnite stream. Shit. Stream camera. I mean, camera, you can keep the camera. This is stream camera. But Llama, you excited for Sea of Thieves? Oh! This has Christmas decorations in it too. I think. It fucking does. That's crazy. It's all over the floor. Who designed this contraption? There's so much stuff here. Of Pokemon, like bird. Wrap it up, people. Wrap it up. There's so much shit here. Oh, damn it. Do the hangings up too as well? Do the hangings up too? I feel like I have to, honestly. I feel like I have to. I mean, I can honestly get some tape and tape it around the area. Might better, actually.
Fire in the hole!
Ah! Fire in my hole. Fire in my hole. Fuck. Dude, why is this getting pushed around, dude? Holy shit, bro. That's better. Yeah. Cool. Okay. All right. Third. Third. Oh no, I'm gonna do the third. Third. Sweet. Aurorus. Fucking. Oh god. What's the Aurorus here? Aurorus, Aurora Borealis. Aurora Borealis. Yes. Yeah, it looks cool, looks good. Wow. A lot of balls here. Little teddy bear there as well. There we go, little teddy bear there too. Ah, god. Oh! The little Harry Potter thing here. A little Harry Potter right there. It's too long, bro. That's so long. What even is that? Is that the parentheses speed test in a different language? Hilarious. I respect that, Rice. Am I better off if I actually just like, I don't know, like, kill myself? I don't know. Looks better. Yeah, I'm mining extra lights, to be honest.
La test fitnessgram pacer est un test d'endurance aérobie et paliers multiples dont la difficulté augmente progressivement. La test de 20 meters débutera dans 30 secondes.
That's funny. Thank you for that, Rice. That's funny. Hang on, can I move a bit more in the center? That looks way better. There's an ad break coming up. Looks good, looks good. I mean, a bit more further, I reckon. Okay. Can I add more lights? I don't more lights, do I? I don't, do I? I wish there were different settings on here, but that's as much I can really do, to be honest. To be fair, I could get a box or like bring this up higher. Oh god. Oh. 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 That's much better. A little bit better. A little bit better. Try the T-Rex above here, maybe. Have it like wrapped around a T-Rex, maybe. Ah! That is not stable enough. That is not stable at all. T-Rex is not stable at all, bro. That's gonna fall. That is guaranteed gonna fall. Oh my god. Oh! Nah, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work. Kinda funny though. Very funny. Oh, okay. That is definitely gonna fall one day. Not today, but one day that's gonna fall, cunt. Dude. Oh, god damn. Looks good, I think. I think the dinosaur should be there though. Okay. Okay. I think T-Bear should go back. Ah. Also, Mama Hook got me this, by the way, Mama Hook. Thank you, Mama Hook made that.
Sit up, straight son. I'm worried about you.
Thank you, Llama. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Wait, add that there. Perfect. Okay, and we put a Christmas sign there. Christmas sign goes there. Or there. What do you feel in chat? I think there. I don't know why, I think that looks good. Ah, there. Worry about it later. There we go. So much shit you have to like put away afterwards. Thank you, Kayla. Okay. I reckon we should get the box and just stack a bit higher, I feel. So maybe take that down and fuck that off. Just that one and that one there. And maybe we have that. Maybe that. Oh yeah, maybe that way. Dude, what are the odds of that being cool like that? What are the odds? That's crazy. What are the odds? Dude. Being caught. Thank God this thing rotates, I swear. Yeah. There we go. Oh, dude, this thing still is on angle? Why is it on angle? Cool. That looks cool. Looks good. I mean, if I had like a light on here, that looks a little bit better. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I would honestly add lights here, but I feel like it's just... it won't work out, I don't think. I mean, hang on. If I just... turn off... looks good. Alright. We can add some utensils. Yeah. Oh, shit. Maybe all the small ones might be better off, just in case. I feel like all the small ones should be appropriate on here, I feel. Ah, there we go. It looks so silly. Like this random tower right here. This means I can't put hooks on it. If this is my own room, there'd be hooks everywhere. I swear there'd be hooks everywhere. Ah! No, it keeps falling down! Oh, it's falling down. Ah, shit. Okay. Yeah. Why is this not being rotated properly? Instantly fell off as soon as I did that. Okay. And there we go, like that. Ah, cool. I feel this looks so pretty okay. Yeah, dropping these things all over. Ah. Damn it. Oh! Already broke one already. Jesus Christ. Oh, dude. No pieces came out. Good. No pieces came out from that. I love how I didn't pick these up from the floor after I spilt it. That's really bad. Already, like, broke 3 already. Okay. I broke my first ball already. Won't be the last one either. Where are the other balls, bro? Oh my god, some of the bottom. What the hell is that? What? Shit. Alright. Shit. Ah. I had a better camera, it would look way better. I promise you that. I assure you, it will look way better. It'll look way better if the camera was better quality. Looks pretty good, looks alright. Okay. Okay. Now, the real question is, how am I going to set up Christmas? Because we've got this here that I should open up. Speaking of fire hazards, definitely gonna open this up. Be right back. Hello, I'm back. Hey chat, I'm back. Okay. That one here. What's the other one? This is full of dust. I haven't used this for ages. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Looks pretty good, if I do say so myself. Best I can really do, to be honest. Best I can really do, if I'm being for real. Can't really do much about it. Sure, it looks fine. What's the thing? Where'd it go? Where'd my plus go? Bad. That's back. Ow. Okay. Wait. Oh shit, different settings. Oh, sick. Oh my god. That's a headache. That's an actual headache. Didn't even know it does that. So like it fades in and fades out. Yeah, that looks cool. That looks alright. Looks alright. Was so funny. Yeah, if I had more lights, I definitely would add more lights to it. Would add more lights to it. Give me a second, I might actually move this back to as before. Fuck. Dude, okay. Okay, buddy. Dude, wiring is the cancer of society. I hate wiring so much. It's so inconvenient. We're gonna move that out of the way first. Just to the better. Oh shit. Oh yeah. Fuck. What? Fuck. Dude, and this is not stable at all. Jesus Christ, bro. This is not stable at all, bro. Oh, bro, come on. This is not stable at all. Why? Falling backwards, there we go. Yeah, that's better. Alright. That's much better. Should have done that a long time ago. Should have done that ages ago. Is that the Nene? I don't know. If that's Nene or not, I've no clue. Ah. Alright. Let's get this up now. There we go. There we go. That goes in now. And that's one of the hooks. Looks right there. Hey guys, ASMR. ASMR, ready? Let's get this fully out. And ready? 3, 2, 1. That's alright, that was pretty good. Not bad. Pretty good. Dude. What? That's pretty bad, actually. What is with this chord? Oh, there we go. Okay, so we want it to be here or here. That looks there. Looks alright. No, maybe higher up. Maybe I reckon higher up. Maybe it looks pretty good. Looks good higher up. The more close to the part here, the better I feel. Or maybe there. Alright. Let's just hook it up. So, these are sticky, aren't they? I have to think they're sticky. Shit. Fuck, wrong position, boys. Oh shit, oh shit. Ah, wrong way. The fuck? How did I fuck this up? There we go, that's better. Alright. Like that. Like the sticky of it. Wonga, 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 wonga. Wait, how much is sticky this on? Is there no stickiness on here? What? I swear there is. That's you, right? There's no stickiness here. Got it. Casualty has been evaded. Fuck! No! I spoke too soon. Fuck. What the fuck? Oh, you know what? It's probably... Alright. Looks good. Now, the magic touch now. Dude, that looks fire. Wow. Does that get fixed at all? You can't even read it. You can't even read it. Yeah. To those who are wondering, that's what's meant to look like. But my camera made it shit. For fuck's sakes. Even if I increase it, oh, you just read it. You can't even read it. That looks good though. I like it. You can't even read. Oh, what a waste. The camera can't even pick up on it. If I were to get a different camera, it'll more likely be the very expensive camera. Like the 4K one. Way better up again. Ah, it's so funny. Ah, at least it looks okay. I think we can like put this in the front, maybe help it like get some chords around it, so that it actually doesn't look like it's a massive fucking workaround. Ah shit. That's better. That's better. I'll have to take a photo of it to be honest. Looks good though. It looks garbage. God, it looks terrible. It looks so bad. In real life, it looks good, trust. Okay, I think that's everything, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think that's everything. I mean, I will add some more stuff, but I want to add the dinosaur lights, but the issue is they're tangled up, and I have nowhere putting it. I'll put it up there, but it'll be so hard to do it. But yeah, I got tape for tomorrow night's big stream, so I'm very excited for that. I have to really prepare myself for that, to be honest. I have a feeling what I'm going to do. The chat may not like it. Alright, we're going to raid off, I reckon. Because there's nothing else to do. I mean, I could play games, but the same... Oh, the fuck? Oh, you piece of shit. There's no way. I could play games, but I'd rather save the games for tomorrow night, you know? So tomorrow night, I'm playing Sea of Thieves with Frauds and fucking... I forgot who else. Fuck. Who else? Wait, Frauds, Celestial Rogue, and Fat Llama. We're doing a 3-way stream of playing Sea of Thieves. Look forward to it. I'm very, very excited to play this with everybody. I haven't played Sea of Thieves in ages, so please look forward to it with my Christmas setup. So that is the best way of starting off the holidays, is by playing Sea of Thieves and getting drunk off grog. Be there, be square. 8 p.m. Just get notified on my Twitch channel. Go to my Twitch at HookSniffer on Twitch. Get notified and you'll see me live. You want to join, you can join. If not, that's okay. So be there, enjoy, and I'll see you there. Bye. Alright, cool. Okay, so we'll go raid off now. We're raiding off. What are we going to raid off to? Who is streaming right now? Shut the fuck up. Hades, Shadow Slicer, they're still streaming. Fuck yeah, they're still streaming. Alright. They're streaming fine. They're streaming fine. They're playing Overwatch, by the way, so let's raid off to them. Raid. Alright, guys. See you guys tomorrow night, whoever is here. Thank you for being here, everybody. And hopefully we'll have a great night tonight. So thank you for watching this video. If you watch this on YouTube, thank you for watching this on YouTube. Hope you're doing well. I might cut some bullshit out as well, maybe, and do some timelines, maybe. But yeah, please enjoy your night. I'll see you guys tomorrow night on Sea of Thieves with Fat Llama, Franz, and Celestial Rogue. And we'll do a merge stream, by the way, so we can read everyone's chat so no one's missing on anything. So see you guys there. Bye. Thank you for seeing all this shit here. Let me know in the comment section down below what else can I add. I want to add more balls. I want to add more lights, like there especially. But yeah, let me know. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Have a good one, guys. But wait, 17th. Yes, that is it. That is it. Yes, yes. Bye bye. Bye bye, boys. Bye bye, boys. See you guys later. Bye.
Decides the match, and victory is in reach. 3, 2, 1, and here they go.
They're sucking me.
Yeah, you gotta give me a second, I can do that. That's
No more
a
of
need
that. Give it up for the Joker Queen.
My microphone volume's at max.